Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 41 of the Rich Cheese Radio Podcast, your place for horological hot takes, taboo topics, and often unpopular watch opinions. As always, my name is Schmidt, and I'm joined by my good buddy. You guys know him. You love him. Mr. Bro Dinky. Bro, what is going on, my friend?
Not too much, that big guy. Just another exhausting week of work. Trying to process all the little new releases that I feel like I've missed, but I've been sort of brushing over and trying to collect before we did this.
Yeah, there's been quite a few things that have popped kind of sneakily, a little bit of summer sprinkling out there, which has been pretty good.
Yeah, I feel like summer's kind of the off season for most people, so dropping really super significant things during the summer is almost like not a guaranteed miss, but you're gonna take a hit in the ratings column, right? Because people are out, man. People are out doing their thing. They're traveling. This is
for sure.
Taking summer Fridays, going down to whatever the nearest shore is, right? Everybody's got a shore that they go to of some kind.
Exactly. I mean, it's vacation time. People are going to tie up money with other resources, vacations, trips, things with family. Like that's a big deal. So
you're just not as connected. You're not on the phone as much. You're not browsing the websites, listening to the pods, reading up on things, right? That's what the cold months are for, when you're trapped inside and
and there's no escape.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Nothing but you and the internet, right?
Yes. So I've been trying to play catch up a little bit as best I can between work, the kids, life, and such.
For sure.
How's everything on your end?
It's good, man. Just been continuously traveling for work, so it's getting harder and harder to record these episodes, but we always seem to make it work for our listeners every Monday. But everything's been good. Family's good. Kids are good. So no issues there. But getting ready for some more business trips coming up soon. So that'll be interesting.
Yeah, and sort of just working. That's it. I got a lot of the old docket.
Never stopping work. Just constantly.
Right now, absolutely. Especially, everybody's complaining about staffing shortages and everything, and I think it's across all industries and across all lines of work, and it doesn't matter who you are. Everybody's hurting for workers and picking up a little extra slack and losing a little extra sleep. So that's where I'm at.
Oh, for sure. It is a constant problem. That is certainly for sure. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. Everyone's affected.
But you do not come here for economics. You came here for watches, and in the spirit of watches, we're going to touch on a few before we get into main topic. I guess first and foremost, Hodinkee, Salmon Chronomaster, any thoughts?
I think it was an exciting release for people that are really passionate about Zenith. I think given the technology of this respective movement and the fact that at least according to Ben Clymer, there's a little bit of a backstory with this watch. They had wanted to create this watch originally. Zenith said that, hey, we want to do this with you guys, but the movement technology isn't quite as ready for mass market production as possible. So we're gonna sandbag this project for a little bit, for a few years, and we'll revisit it once the technology is viable and it's ready. So I think that was kind of an interesting point. I think Ben posted about that on his Instagram page, his personal one, talking about the project and how he was very excited that this came to fruition. So I think from the aspect of the movement technology, what this means for Zenith, I think all of that is great. I think it's a cool collaboration. However, for me, I thought it was a very odd choice of colorway. Salmon dial, we know, has been very popular, especially over the last several years. I mean, I think 2 or 3 years ago, it was even more popular than it is now. But for me, what really threw me was the sandy beige color subdials and the outer accents on the dial. I just don't think that those two colors worked particularly well together. I thought it was a little bit of a clash, and for me, it felt awkward. Not bad, but just awkward. I don't know. What do you think?
I think I'm right there with you. I don't mind the dial color, which a couple of people DM me complaining that they thought it was a little more copper. I could take it or leave it, but it's salmon. We'll call it salmon.
I mean, that's how they listed it, right? Didn't they say it was a salmon dial?
I think so. I mean, it depends what kind of salmon you're eating. I mean, a lot of the stuff you get from the store is dyed. But Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat as you. I didn't really love the gray subdials. I felt
Yeah,
like it, instead of making the watch pop, it kind of does the opposite effect. It sort of,
it mutes it.
yes, it mutes it, it pushes
Yeah,
everything back, and it doesn't, it hurts the legibility in my opinion.
I agree.
So,
I agree.
and my, I think my favorite part about the El Primero that we always talk about is all of the different colors kind of being synergistic on that dial, and you lose that very much here. And
Yeah,
I even liked the edition they had, the manufacturer edition with the all blue subdials. I thought that looked good. There's a bunch of different variations that I don't think you need all different colors to necessarily be successful there. This one, it just seems like it's, I guess it's just muted the way you put it. It
yeah.
just doesn't pop for me. And I guess that's when I'm spending that much money on a watch. That's not what I'm going to be looking for.
Especially now that you can't get them there. They sold out instantly.
Obviously.
I mean, I'm looking at one on eBay right now for well over $12,000. I mean, it, it's a crazy watch. I mean, and I'll say this: having tried one of these Chronomaster original cases on before, they wear extremely well. It's a very nice vintage package. The sizing is great. You know, the overall thickness of the case and the bracelet are fantastic. It's a really cool timepiece. I just don't like the aesthetics. This taupey, silvery gray, kind of this dark gunmetal-y gray. It feels odd. I miss the Chronomaster colors with more of the red, white, and blue kind of aspect in it. And again, I know this is a special watch. It's meant to be something different, but it feels too plain for me. And I know that that's a huge over exaggeration, but it just doesn't pop. I don't feel like the colors are harmonious together, and I think that's a little bit of the problem for me.
Yeah, and that's just where I'm at. Again, if I'm going to spend that much money on a watch, am I really going to go after something that A, I don't love, and B, I don't feel is completely successful in its goal? I don't think I am.
Yeah, yeah, I had to agree. I mean, you and I are the same way. It's just it is what it is. Just not my cup of tea. Now, to everyone else out there that got it, hey man, congrats. If this was the bee's knees for you, then great. But just not it for me. Sorry, Ben. Love you, buddy, but not it for me.
I mean, listen, I'd love to take a look at it in person and see exactly how those colors work together to the naked eye. I know cameras play a lot of tricks. I've seen plenty a talented photographer be able to mold pictures of watches where I think they look terrific, and then I see them in person and they're
And they're flat.
less than
You're like,
stellar.
wait, you guys filtered out all of the flecto and now it looks so much better in this photo. So when I see it in real life, there's all this glare that I can't read the dial. Oh, yeah. Well, that's the beauty of Photoshop, right?
It do be like that.
It do be like that sometimes. But no, I'm with you, man. It's just sometimes and that's why I've always told people, as a sidebar note, go see things in person. You have to. You have to go see things in person. You have to try them on because it can look amazing, but some very talented, very well compensated photographer is making it look that way. So go check it out. You got to try it on in person for sure.
Yeah, another interesting release, I guess, from the week. I think we've seen the green Carrera. I now see a red Carrera.
Yep.
Not that that's a monumental jump, changing colors. It's a very nice red. I've always liked the Carrera. I think that's one of their better models, and I'm happy that they're moving forward with those because that's kind of always been my criticism of them is to they should really hammer home those successful models and go with those
Yep.
heritage pieces. And even the plain old Carrera, I love it, and it's a watch I would consider getting, despite all the trash that gets talked about Tag Heuer and the jokes about 12-year-old CEOs, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, they're a heritage brand with stellar chronographs, and I would absolutely be down to own one under the right circumstances. Are they a brand I necessarily seek out? No, but one of my buddies that was on the pod a couple weeks ago actually had an Octavia at one point. It was actually a pretty cool watch. It was a little heavy, a little bulky, but chronographs often are.
Yep.
But it came out a pretty cool beads of rice. It was a really nice watch, and I appreciated the craftsmanship that went into it. So I'd definitely be down to explore Tag a little more, but it's not usually a brand that I gravitate to right away.
I would say this for me. and we've talked about this a lot on the pod before, and I'll echo it again. Tag is one of those brands that could be so extremely popular. They could be so market dominant, but there's such a disparity between their classic vintage collection and what they're really focusing on as the new era of tag. And this Carrera is cherry picked, and I use that word with intention. Is cherry picked right
Nicely
out
done.
of the best playbook of Hoyer. I mean, this is a gorgeous watch, and the dial is insane. It's a beautiful execution of a Carrera. Now, again, at 6750, is it a little steep? Yeah, but we're talking about 80-hour power reserves. We're talking about a well-finished movement. It looks amazing. The alligator strap, deployant, and it's a true limited edition, right? Only 600 total pieces of this will be made. So somebody's going to have something very collectible. And, the last few times that we've seen a Hoyer like this, they've been, releasing collaboration with Houdinki or some of these other companies where that's kind of the thing. They're going to release this for that respective reason. This is just a normal watch that's going to be sold by Tag. And I think it's going to do very well. I would love to see this as a consistent mainstay in the collection, especially at 39 millimeters for a chrono. I think that's going to be fantastic. I know this watch will do well, but again, this is going to be a blip in Tag, right? It's going to be a consistent fire punch. It's going to be a blip. 600 are going to be around. 600 are going to sell, and then 6 months from now, nobody's going to care. And that I think is very sad. The other thing that I thought was interesting, and this is again another sidebar here. I don't know if you've ever tried on any of the recent like vintage deployant buckles from Tag, bro.
Have not.
When you clasp them, the word Hoyer that's on the buckle is actually upside down. So when you look at it, typically on a watch, the logo on the dial will be right side up to you. As you
Yeah.
rotate your wrist to see the 6 o'clock position, typically the logo will also be right side up.
Yes, makes sense.
You're reading it. When you do it on Hoyer, on the Tag, Hoyer is upside down. So it's right side up to everyone else outside of you that's looking at the back of your wrist, basically. But it's not right side up when you look at it, which drove me nuts. I was at a Tag boutique trying on the Monaco, and I'm like, did you guys flip the strap around? They're like, no, that's how it goes. I was like, okay, that's annoying. I was like, I'm definitely not gonna spend $8,000 on this.
I guess it's so when if you put your arm up to check the time, a la Michael J. Fox on the Back to the Future 2 cover,
right,
where he's
like
got it
yeah,
up. Now
yeah.
Whoever's in front of you is like, oh, Hoyer, nice.
Yeah, exactly. So, like I said, everyone else behind, like on the outside of you, can when they see it, they can read it. But typically, that's not how it's done. The vast majority of brands will have it. You're reading it because it's your watch, right? So I thought that was interesting. But for me, it's just this. I was like, man, this is a big nitpick, but it's kind of like just not it for me. So. But yeah, I think it's going to do well. I wish the best of Tag. I just wish they would make it a really consistent piece of their collection. Because you look at the other Carreras and they got Gosling all over it. And I'm not focused on that. I want a true Carrera.
Well, that's why they're $7,000. They got to pay the guys.
You got to, baby.
Next, an old cult favorite, I guess, Seiko returns, the Sumo. I'm going to be honest, this is always a diver I kind of avoided. I think the round shape and just the overall chunkiness of the bezel, it was something that really never appealed to me. I prefer smaller and minimal, as I think we've kind of established on this pod plenty of times. So this one, I never really wanted to go after it. I know a lot of people really like it, and they say it wears surprisingly well for its dimensions. I've never even tried one on, but this comes back in a few different colorways. You get that kind of new Seiko patty colorway, which is the black with the turquoise accents. Kind of standard deal. I know a lot of people will like it. I don't think I'm going after one of these But I guess good on them for bringing it back. I know a lot of people did enjoy them before they got rid of them.
Yeah, yeah, it was but that one's always been a little bit of a bloated watch for me.
Yeah.
Um, I think it looks good. It kind of reminds me of like a Generation One or Generation Two Planet Ocean.
Yeah.
Right, it's that 45 millimeter kind of big burly case. But I think about that. It's like 45, but it's only 200 meters. You know, 45 and a half for a PO, but it'll be 600 meters. So it's kind of interesting. But like you said, it's a cult classic. I'm a take it or leave it. I could have it. If somebody gave me one, I'd probably wear it, but it's not something that I'm gonna run out to the store and buy myself. Not to dissuade anybody from doing that, because I think it's gonna be a great watch if you decide to pick one up. But just not me. Not me.
Last up on the list of watches here, I know this is a watch you were particularly excited about because you sent
This
it
is me. I will
directly
say this.
to me.
This
And
is me.
it falls in line with a lot of things we talked about, actually, in reference to Tag Heuer previously, although it is not a Tag Heuer. It is the Citizen Aqualand.
Yes. It's back, baby. She is back. Jason Eaton, eat your heart out, buddy. We got you a new Aqualand. She's back.
Yeah, they were all over it. I saw they posted it right away. And it looks good. It's got that very night diver aesthetic. You're gonna get that all that loom up in there, and I think it'll be a winner. And it's not gonna be too much. It's a Citizen, which is great.
Yeah, I mean, this watch, there's actually a few different variations. So I sent you right off the bat, I sent you the night diver variation, which I'm very,
Yes.
very, very interested
And
in.
that's my favorite one too.
Yeah, I think so. I think it looks great. But there's like a blue sunray dial version. There's a black dial that's basically the same model from the 80s, just reimagined. Um, I know that I think James Stacy was the one that kind of one of the first people to go hands on with this model. I'm sure that there's probably going to be a review of it coming soon, which is great, but certainly a very cool watch. And what's interesting is I had a lot of experience with the Aqualand myself, not because I physically have worn one, but because when I was getting certified to dive, one of my instructors had been wearing the same Aqualand since the 80s. And it was beat to hell. It had been on thousands and thousands and thousands of dives. And that was his dive computer. That's how he measured every single dive that we ever did. And so all of the dives that I got certified with were on that Aqualand. And sadly, towards the end of the time that I was getting certified, um, one of his gaskets failed, and it killed his
Wow.
Aqualand. Yeah, and he was so crushed, like absolutely crushed, because I mean, when you wear something that long, and it becomes an instinctive part of you. Like there's no way to remove you from that. And I as soon as I found out that this new Aqualand was coming, I DM'd him instantly. I was like, "Hey, get your wallet ready. It's back." And he was
It's
over
time.
the moon. Yeah, it was over the moon because it was the same Aqualand that he knew. It's got the depth sensor on it. It's got the LCD screen on the top at 12 o'clock. It's got the buttons. It's basically the same thing, just now updated. So he was over the moon excited with it, and I think he's going to get one for sure.
And last on my list of housekeeping is a super important discontinuation. I mean, hold on to your seats here, folks. The Choco Taco is dead.
Oh, yes. Our friend Gatlin at Dead 2 was like, "Did they really just kill the Choco Taco?" She's like, "My entire childhood is dead."
That was why, if anybody saw it, I posted a box. I had a box of them at work, and I posted. I said, "Discontinued, DM for price. No low balls. I know what I
no low,
have."
no low balls. I know what I have. Oh my god, that's funny. Yeah, that was a little bit of shocking news, but honestly, I think we'll see how long it stays that way. The internet has certainly taken this very personally. They want their Choco
Right.
Tacos back.
I mean, they got the Mexican pizza back, so why not?
I mean, anything is possible. Anything is possible. All right, bro. So we kind of opened up with some stuff that's come out recently since we last recorded. But what's the main topic today? What are we trying to get into?
Well, sort of in that transition of things that came out recently, I was doing a lot of thinking, and I was actually having a conversation with some people recently about starter watches and getting into the hobby and kind of how it goes, and not necessarily watch people and people who were even interested in buying a watch, but just I was kind of explaining, certain people in my private life, they know what I kind of do out here on the internet, and they're a little bit fascinated with it. And so every once in a while we get in discussions about it.
Yeah.
And so they were just talking to me and just kind of asking me questions. And in that discussion, I was kind of taking them through sort of the process of going and buying a starter watch. And by starter, I mean sort of that one that we all started with. I mean, for me, it was that Green
Yeah.
Turtle. For a lot of people, it's an SKX
Other
or something.
things.
It
Yeah, exactly.
was, at least. But I think we all had that model. I know a lot of us didn't jump right into high end pieces. I like we talk
No.
about all the time. It's a very big gut check to open the wallet to that extent, and I think it still is every time you do it,
Oh, it
because
is for sure, for sure.
especially when you have a family, a mortgage, a car payment, right? You sort of start to tally that up as you go, and you're like, how many car payments is this watch?
Will my wife find this on the bank account feed? Yes. Okay.
Right. So going back to starter watches, there's plenty of fun that can be had in this hobby at an affordable price. And by affordable, I think you mean under 500-600 bucks, especially
Yeah.
now, because, and I lean a little bit on that 600 because the prices of watches have come up kind of across the board. The
Yeah.
discounts
Yeah.
aren't there so plentifully anymore, right? You can always hop on Joma Shop or eBay or something, but things add up: shipping, tax, all that good stuff. It adds up, and it, all of a sudden you're at that $1,000 threshold, and you were kind of only planning on a few hundred, and you know
Yeah,
how it
exactly.
goes.
Yeah, man. I mean, it adds up quick. That's for sure. It certainly does add up quick.
So anyway, this discussion got me thinking. I was sort of describing the definitive watch in a lot of categories with them. And so I was thinking about how that has changed since I guess I got into collecting, and sort of what the norm that has been established was or is. And so I know I was talking to you and we wanted to do sort of an episode. We do these fun episodes once in a while where we're going to talk about that definitive watch to either of us, and then where we kind of see things headed, or what we would buy in the same vein as that, if you're
Yeah.
maybe not trying to be that super mainstream, super I bought this because somebody else told me this is the one to go with type of thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And again, we've always tried to kind of bring you guys alternative models outside of the stuff that's always gonna be funneled down your usual watch blogs and reference points. So we really are challenging ourselves to kind of go against the beaten path, if you will. So um hopefully there are some better options for you.
Yeah, and listen, you can get your watch talk anywhere. You can get your information anywhere. It's pretty abundant at this point. Everybody has a blog now. Everybody's got some kind of media outlet, even if it's just a personal one, whether it's a page
Yeah.
or whatever. You come here because we're going to talk about some stuff that is not necessarily so mainstream. I mean, don't get me wrong, you know a lot of my heart lies with Seiko, and in an episode like this, obviously I'm going to have a few in there, but I also try to bring you stuff that I've had my eye on and that has interested me. And the starter watch kind of brings me back to that original enthusiasm that I had for this hobby when I got into it, where you seek out these different models. And I've talked about this before. I just spent tons of time on Watch Recon and Watch You Seek in the sales section, just flicking, because I wanted to just take in every single model. I didn't know what was out there. How do you know
Yeah.
what the limitations are of everything out there when you just started out and you don't know how easy it is to use a reference number like STEM to go into the different models? Okay, 305, 307, 309. Is there a 306? No. But why is that? I don't know. That's just how it is. But now that I've been doing it long enough, I know that, let's say this model operates on odd numbers only. So I can find sneaky colorways, or I can find the different nuanced editions that maybe I wouldn't have found before. And so I was just trying to take in every single model because I didn't want to buy. I hate being that person who buys something and then realizes later that they didn't get the most ideal form of that for myself. Like if I buy a computer and I'm like, oh, this wasn't bad, it was like 800, and then I find out if I just would have sprung for like 925, I could have got like the elite version of it, and I was like, oh, that was dumb. I
Yeah,
should like
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
hate that.
For sure, for sure.
But so yes, I wanted to do this episode because starter watches, even though they are, I guess, a little basic for a lot of people, they're still very fun to me, and they bring a lot of people into our little hobby steadily, and I think that's important. And hopefully, if a few people stumble across this episode, they'll get some good suggestions and maybe pick up something they really love. So the
And
idea,
again, it's important that that we help get people started and we stay grounded ourselves.
true,
We have a lot of expensive stuff in our collections, you and me both. We've talked about a lot of expensive stuff on this podcast before, but sometimes it's a great exercise to think back to when we first got started and how we didn't have the money or the resources that we had to get into this hobby. We couldn't buy 10 watches, we could buy one. And if we had to do that, which watch would it be? So I love this exercise. I'm glad that you brought this topic forward, bro. Let's get into it. You want to kick us off?
yeah. So kind of the idea is, I think we picked a few criteria of different styles of watches, for example, field, diver, etc. And we're gonna kind of talk about the archetypal pick, and then sort of some stuff that we like that's off of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I guess we'll kick it off. We'll start with field watch because that's just the one I have at the top of my list. I think the obvious go-to here, everybody thinks Hamilton khaki. It's a wonderful faithful reedition. It's a manual one. It has a nice movement in it, especially now that they have 80-hour power reserves.
Yep.
And they got a lot of publicity when they reissued it. I think from that, a lot of people wisened up to CWC as well. I know they've gained a lot of traction where you used to be able to pick up the G10 issued G10 for like 100 and change, $200. Now they're like up like 500-600 for like
Yeah.
a really decent model, which stinks, I guess. But those are sort of that similar vein, and those are very standard military issue. Like they got the fixed bars and everything. So, but they're really cool. And again, you can get them stamped. You can get somebody's issued watch, which is also very awesome.
Yep.
And I think it just goes with that quintessential field look. You have the black dial, brushed or bee blasted case, whatever it might be, right? Because the idea is you're not trying to be blingy. You're not trying to attract attention. It's a military watch, right?
Yeah. So that said, bro, since you're bringing this up, what was, when you started collecting, what was the quintessential entry level field watch? I'm curious if it was the same for both of us.
I'm not sure, to be honest. I mean, I have an idea of a watch that I think it crosses over with field and maybe pilot-ish, which
Okay.
would be the Seiko SNK 809.
That's the one that I have on my list.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
that to me, and it was funny. I purposely asked this question for you because I had a feeling we were gonna have the same answer. Because this for me, when I first started collecting, like this was not only the field watch for entry level, but we're talking super entry level.
Basement.
I mean,
$78.
I was gonna say, when I first started collecting, this was $75 for a day-date in-house automatic movement. Now, plus or minus tolerances were not the greatest for sure, but they
no
always
hacking
kept
your hand winding, but
they always kept okay time, and the loom was insane. I mean, this is Seiko Lumibrite looms, right? So the loom was insane on this little guy, and it was what 37 millimeters, if I'm not mistaken, or 36 millimeters, something small. 18 mil lugs looked great on a NATO. The SNK 809s and its variants in black, blue, tan, or green was just like the starter field watch of all field watches. And to this day, I mean, there's one of my buddies out there that has my 809, and you know who you are. He listens to the podcast, so I know he knows who he is. But hey, man, if you're ever willing to give that back, because I loaned it to you, just let me know. I'd like it back at some point. But but they've gone up a little bit, not by much. I was checking the prices today. We're looking now at $105 on Amazon. So, you know, 30 or so dollar increase or whatever over the years, which isn't too bad, but certainly a watch that is well worth the $100.
It was my, I don't know if it was my first. It was definitely one of my early giveaway watches, the SNK 809.
Yeah. That was for me one of the first watches that I remember Worn and Wound covering like pretty extensively. And I was like, okay, this is a watch that I can get into. $75. Like this is doable. This is a drunken eBay purchase for sure. um but that's it. So you talked about the mechanical, the Hamilton khaki. Would that be kind of your quintessential modern version of the field watch?
I think that's very much where it's gone, especially again since they upgraded their movements, they've given you
Yeah.
different dial choices. Something sort of off the beaten path that I really like, which kind of goes along with the G10, are the marathons.
Yeah,
Again, this is a military brand, like a legit military brand,
for sure.
and they make the general purpose, they make navigators, so you can get a couple, you can get sort of that traditional fieldy look, or you can get something with a bezel on it with a navigator, and you can get a multitude of movements. You can get automatic, you can get quartz. Obviously, price points vary there, but I mean the quartz versions are very affordable, and they're just no nonsense. They come in a little minimal cardboard box.
Yeah.
There's no box in a box. There's no plastic wrap. It is a box, and inside is your watch on a strap.
Yeah. Now, it's funny they bring up Marathon because some people know this, some people don't. But Marathon did a collaboration with J. Crew, and there's actually some very cool versions of those watches that the majority of watch fan probably doesn't know about, but they're very, very, very cool. Navigator and some of them are in there, and one of my favorite ones, and I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's a khaki case with an orange dial,
Oh,
and
I've seen that.
it has 12, 3, 6, and 9 on the dial, and it just looks so sick. It looks so sick. So a little bit of an abstraction in the field watch world, but a very cool version. So that would be my navigator.
And would you say that's kind of where you would go to, or you have something else in mind?
So I had listed here SNK 809 is kind of like the watch that started it all. I do have the Hamilton khaki mechanical,
Obviously.
especially at under $500. I mean, $495 retail for a Swiss made mechanical watch from a reputable brand that produced this watch before with an 80-hour power reserve. That's a pretty big deal. But I would say, to kind of go more of an affordable option while still getting something mechanical, I went a little bit off the beaten path, just a tad. And I decided to go with the Bulova Hack.
Okay.
This is a watch that Bulova produced in the past. It was a watch designed for military application, one of the first hacking watches, which allowed you to stop the second hand so that you could use it to synchronize military attacks. So this is really at its core, at its heart, a military timepiece, and certainly designed for that. Now, could you argue that maybe the modern versions of this are not quite as rugged or durable as their predecessors? Maybe, but I think if you're looking for a great military style timepiece from a brand that has a military heritage, I think the Hack is certainly a cool version. It's a little bit upgraded in size. It is mechanical. There's several different variations. They just came out with a new version in blue, like an ice blue dial with a red second hand. There's a few color options, so I think it's a cool watch. I definitely recommend it, and I think it would be a good starting price at under $400.
So for field, I'm going to move on to my personal, well, one of my favorite categories here, which would be dive watches. When I was just getting going, obviously Seikos were abundant. The SKX was kind of considered
The king.
yes, it was the generic answer. You went on the forum, what should my first watch be? SKX. Before you could finish even
Double
typing out
007
your
or
statement.
double
Yeah.
009. You take your
Right.
pick, right?
You want the black, you want the Pepsi, and It's a watch that had a lot of charm. It didn't have a ton of bells and whistles. Obviously, some people did upgrade the movement, which probably was a good move if you were into that sort of thing. If you needed the
Yeah.
hacking and things like that, throwing an NH in there isn't such a bad thing if you can get away with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, obviously, Seiko offers a ton of other divers that have those amenities. But another brand that is often associated with Seiko, even though I guess I don't think there's an actual tie to them, is Orient. And
Yep.
the Orient, you have the Mako or the Ray. Kind of pick your poison. The
Yep.
Ray
Yep.
was
Yep.
more the circular indices. The Ray was, I mean, the Mako was the stick indices. Kind of have the same function. What's going on? Sort of just what you're into within the aesthetic there. But those were like the three that every single person was like, "Oh, you want to start a diver? Orient Mako, Seiko SKX.
Yeah.
Just pick one."
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Now,
So
sort of,
did you ever own one of those?
yeah, of course I had an SKX. I didn't own an Orient diver. I bought one for several people. I bought
Yeah.
a Ray 2 for a coworker. I bought a Mako 2 for actually my father-in-law. It was like Christmas time, and my wife's like, "Oh, you want to watch?" And this was I wasn't so well known at the time, and I don't even know
Yeah.
if my wife knew exactly what the hell I was doing at the time. But she's like, "He says he wants to watch," and he sent me like it was like the Sterling version of the sub. And I was like,
Okay.
hold on here, guys. Like, same price. I'll get you something a lot better, and it'll hold up to the test of time. And I got on the Mako. He's like, "Oh yeah, this thing is great." I'm like, "Yeah, I know, I know."
Yeah, I remember this story. I think one of our first episodes we talked about it.
Yeah, I definitely touched on it before.
So cool. So cool. How thoughtful you are, my friend. How thoughtful you are.
I try.
I mean, it's true. I mean, these are watches that got me going. Again, you and I got into collecting around the same time, and similar thing, man. It was like Orient Mako, Orient Ray, and I think that back then they had the Black Ray as well, which was very cool.
Yep.
If you wanted to spring for a little bit more money, get the Black DLC version or PVD version. But very very cool choices. And again, even still to this day, even though they're more difficult to come by, at least the SKXs are because they've been officially discontinued for a few years now. Um, it's still a very inspired choice to start. 200 meters water resistant, actual ISO 6425 rated dive watch, screw down crown. I mean, great, great watch.
Yeah, and for those people who are kind of bummed about the SKX price hike, I honestly urge you to check out the 7548s, the quartz divers from yesteryear. You're getting the same case and everything, same look. You're getting a quartz movement. Again, is that for everybody? No, but for a vintage watch that you're gonna beat around, like it just makes so much sense to me. And
Yeah.
as I mentioned on the episode with Nick, Schwarzkopf wore one, so there's a little provenance there.
Yep. Yep. Great watches. Great watches.
Yeah, and sort of bringing that into the future, I didn't stray too far. I have spoke about my Seiko Solar quartz on here
I love
before.
this watch. I love
Dude,
this
it
watch.
is such a home run at the I think it's 38 millimeters or maybe 38 and change, and it wears so good. Obviously, it's a quartz, it's lightweight, it's a solar movement, you know, charges itself. That the battery life on it is like enormous, and it wears it wears great. Any rubber strap will do. Anything from Uncle Seiko to the standard strap, they all work. A NATO looks great on it.
Yeah.
At that price point, you're not getting an amazing bracelet, so maybe reserve judgment there.
Yeah.
But
Beggars can't be choosers.
for what you're paying for, and almost like a turbo beater, it's a great watch. Like it's a watch that I constantly reach for when I'm going to work because why not? And it's going to stand the test of time, and even when it's beat up, it's going to look really good. So
And you had the patty version, right? If I remember correctly.
Yes, and they also
Yeah.
have now they have a blue version, a green version. They have the original black. They have like a taupe, and then they also have for you fancy boys. They have sort of that yacht master look to it, where it's like a rosy gold tone with a black bezel.
There we go. There we
Yeah,
go. Oh
that's
yeah,
actually
yeah. I'm
my
looking at it right
favorite
now. I'm
yacht
looking at it right
master.
now.
It's my favorite yacht master. So
Yeah.
I kind of I've been tempted to just be like, if I could find one of these for super cheap, I'll totally buy it. But that's my drunk at 3 a.m. eBay buy.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Exactly, exactly. No, this is a good choice, man. This is a solid diver, and again, it's a Seiko. You can't kill it. They've been doing solar technology forever, so they are certainly masters of that as well. So solid choice, and I love the new patty colorway. I really do. I have a few patties myself from some of the older generations, like the turtle, and I also have a samurai. Great watches, but it's really hard to wear the red, white, and blue
Yeah.
like all the time, you know. So this new patty with just like the aqua is very cool. I like it a lot.
So what do you think about your sort of go-to diver in today's landscape for a great starter watch?
I really had to think hard at this because I mean the two watches that you already mentioned are like, they are icons for a reason. you know Even still to this day, people start their collections out with that, and I know when I got into collecting, like, that was the thing. It was these watches for sure. um so certainly the SKX 007 009 is up there. The orange was certainly up there. I really wanted to find something different, so I did a lot of research to figure this one out. But there's a new Citizen that's kind of based off of the Citizen that they just recently released earlier this year. It's what they call a super titanium case. It's kind of like around 41 millimeters, but it was a vintage inspired dive watch. And essentially, the story goes that somewhere in the 1970s, this like Seiko watch was made and it was lost. And somehow it washed up on the beach like in the mid 1980s. And like Citizen like caught wind that this had happened, and so they decided to relaunch this watch. And it was like covered in barnacles and like all this kind of crazy stuff, and it was still working. Like somebody wound it up and it was still running after years and years and years of being like underwater. So they decided to create this new version in titanium. Now that watch, unfortunately, is going to be closer to $1,000, so it's going to be outside of that price point that I want. But there's another reference that apparently right now is a JDM only, but you can order it online. You can get it through Amazon or whatever. That comes in right above the $460 price point at retail, which means they're a little bit less on actual street value. And this is the Citizen NY 0125 83E. It is a vintage inspired watch. It's in stainless steel. Now, this one actually has it has like a two-tone aesthetic to it. So it's a black dial, black bezel, but the bezel ring itself is going to be in a gold tone. The hands and the markers are going to be in a gilt style, so they're going to be gold tone as well. But you have a black dial automatic with the day date. It is not a thin watch per se, because this is a mechanical watch, but it is it's going to be a little bit of a thick boy based on the specs. But I think at, from what I can see, around $320 or so street value for an in-house Citizen dive watch that's a little bit different, off the beaten path than something else that people would have. I think this would be certainly a cool watch to do. And this one is on a bracelet. It does have all the goodies that you can expect, a ratcheting diver's extension, all that good stuff in this watch already. So is it the best watch? Nope. Is it the most common watch? Nope. It is JDM, as I mentioned, but certainly a cool watch that you can get your hands on and that you could wear every day.
Yeah, and I think you'd be remiss if you were talking Citizen and never brought up the ProMaster, right?
Yeah.
That's
I mean, they
another
they just relaunched it, you
like
know?
analogous classic to the SKX when I think
I
about it.
mean, the new relaunched version is so good. There's then they just came out with the Night Diver Fugu. There's so many good options there that I wanted to pick something a little different, and so I went with this one instead of the obvious choice, which would be the new generation of ProMaster. In addition to that, I do also have one more option. This is a small independent micro brand based in Austin, Texas, known as Dufresne. I know that they've done a lot of stuff at Wind Up and some certain things like that. They have a specific model known as the Barton Springs. It's right around that $400-$500 price point for a nice dive watch as well, with some pretty distinctive styling, good water resistance, all that good stuff. So, to me, this is another watch that could certainly be a good obvious choice, outside of maybe a mainstream one. I know that they're becoming more and more popular as the days go on, but they really are still in a lot of ways still an independent. So if you haven't given them a look, check them out. Certainly, like I said, they're based in Austin, Texas. Independent micro brand, so making good stuff.
Yeah, and whenever I think Dufresne, I think Shawshank Redemption.
Oh, that's funny. That is funny.
All right, on to our next here. Chronograph. I had a difficult time pinning down exactly what I thought the go-to entry level chronograph is. A, because chronographs are usually not cheap,
Yes, that is very true.
right? And I guess picking a good one is kind of hard. Sort of the default that I used to see often is the Siegel 1963
Oh yeah, yeah, for
because it
sure.
is very affordable. I think at the time it was coming in around $200, and it has that that Venus clone movement in it, which some people have given me very mixed reviews on. The one that I toyed around with had no issues, but I've heard them failing on people multiple times. So
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
guess it's a real thing. I can't speak to that myself. But for me, that was sort of everybody's like, oh, you need a chronograph. This is a column wheel chronograph for $200. How could you go wrong? I guess, right? That's sort of what
Mm-hmm.
the consensus was.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Now these days, I think after this year, there should also be a consensus, and I think it's an obvious choice. You're wearing it. The Moon Swatch is for what you're getting cachet wise. I think you can't beat it.
Yeah, exactly.
Again, it's very light. A lot of people think it feels like a toy. Is it necessarily made from the finest materials and the most fancy schmancy movement? No. But again, the cachet that comes with it is unmatched at that price point. I don't think you'll ever beat it necessarily.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
you're getting a Speedmaster aesthetic in a $260 package. So
yeah. No, I think that this is certainly a very good option. I mean, again, I'm biased. I own one. I was fortunate enough to snag one.
I saw
Uh,
one in the wild in New York City the other day. A guy
yeah, I
walking
remember I saw your
opposite me
DM
on the
about
side. I
that.
was like, what? It was the mission to the moon, too. I was like, wow.
So in the last 48 hours, I've seen two moon swatches. I ran into a guy that had the Mercury, really good dude. He and I were talking back and forth, so that was fantastic. And then there was a guy that I was at like this food court in the mall in Miami, and there was a guy wearing a Mission to Uranus, which is, and I'm like, all right, cool. And it was funny is he must have been a watch guy or watch collector, because the guy across from him was wearing a Daytona. The guy next to him was wearing a Pelagos. The guy
Okay.
next to him, like at the other side of the table, was wearing a Planet Ocean. So like these guys are all watch people, obviously. But it was just so funny. It was like the most Miami watch that I had seen in a very long time.
Okay.
Mission to Uranus. So there you go. There you go. I was not wearing my moon swatch though at that time. I should have been. I kind of felt bad that I wasn't. But if I was gonna jump into this affordable chronographs, if you will, I think you said it right. The Seagull 1963 certainly was one of those hit watches for everyone back in the day. I think there's quite a few more options these days that you can kind of get into, but I mean they're all still going to have those same type of movements, you know. And for me, if I'm going to go a little bit different, picking something that's a little bit cooler, but kind of, riffing on the past, um, I'm going to go with the Laurier Gemini, the manual one, Bicomp Chrono from Laurier.
And I think it
Um,
uses the same Siegel movement, if I'm
it
not
does,
mistaken.
it does. But you're getting a full bracelet, you're getting its own kind of unique design, you're getting a nice bezel, very, very, classic, symmetrical design, and a lot of people rave about Laurier. I think it's a great, great company. Another micro brand based in Texas. I believe they're out of Houston, if I'm not mistaken. That's kind of what I remember hearing about. But husband and wife family team, they do this stuff. They do these little drops here and there, and they sell out very quickly. They're always at windups. So if you can get your hands on the Laurier, I think it's fantastic. So uh, this would be a good option. And at $499, like we're literally right under that price point. But this is a watch I think people would look for.
Yeah, and I had one more that always pops in my mind. That's honestly, it's sort of on both sides of the fence of the kind of classic idea and sort of what I look for, and also bridges into another category, which would be the below the Luna pilot.
Yeah. I
Right?
mean, how could you not mention that
You're
one, right?
getting a moonwatch of sorts, a space watch ish.
We'll put that one
Oh,
in quotations. We'll put that
right.
one in
I air
quotations.
quoted that. You couldn't see that one, but I air quoted that. But it sort of bridges the gap because you get pilot chronograph, and the sizing is certainly not for everybody. It is very, very big lug to lug.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So
It's a big boy. There's no question about that. That's for sure. But
that bleeds over into the topic of pilot. And again, I pilot I had a hard time because that 809 Seiko is sort of a pilot aesthetic, but I also think you get in that realm you have Seiko Flightmaster, Citizen Nighthawk. Those are like the go-to entry pilot watches for a lot of people. I mean, they have
yeah,
very busy dials. You get all kinds of different measurement instruments. It's almost like the I hate to use the term poor man's, but like the very, very poor man's Navitimer in terms of like busyness and like I don't know what this stuff does or how it measures, but boy, is it complex and it looks cool, you know?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly, exactly. Oh man, that's funny. Maybe we should do that one day. Do a poor man's offering of classic timepieces. I don't think we've done that before yet.
No, we haven't. And also maybe a how the hell do I use this segment would be fun.
I'll have to put on my thinking cap to explain all this over the air. That'd be interesting.
That would be a hilarious live bit would be to show up at something with watch nerds and be like, "Hey, how do you use this slide rule on this Navitimer?"
Let's
Like
not give our
just try to get
let's
them
let's
to
not give our competition any free episode content.
I don't believe in competition.
There you go. There you go. I
You
like
want
it.
you want to come with the king, you best not miss, as they say.
There we go. That's right. You heard it here, boys.
No, but those are kind of the ones I always think of in terms of, I guess, quote unquote pilot. But for me, at the price point that they come in at, with the heritage this brand has, Laco has
Yeah.
tremendous brand cachet, and also they put out all of the classic looking pilots you could ever ask for in every colorway, all different color looms, dial colors, case materials. I know they make bronze stuff now at 300 some odd dollars. I mean, they go up from there. They do, but
Yeah,
you
yeah,
can
for sure.
find
But
a great
we're still
model.
talking about stuff under $500.
I'm talking, yeah, the all of your basic dials like that I forget what they call it. They're all like letters, like A dial, B dial, but all the ones you can
Yeah,
think
yeah.
of when you think classic Fliegers, they've got them. You can get them under $500 all day long in a variety of different mix and match colors, finishes, etc. You just
And
can't go wrong.
sizes. And
Yes,
sizes.
they go. I've seen them down as far as 36
Yep.
and up to sort of that bigger pilot aesthetic. It's a brand I've almost pulled the trigger on a million times because I would love an IWC, but they don't exactly come in at a wallet-friendly price anywhere.
Exactly
But
right.
to scratch that itch for $300, man, that's a tempting proposition, you know?
Absolutely, absolutely. And again, especially not to get anything too crazy. I know for you, like you're also very critical of the type of sizes that you like to wear.
I am.
I mean, getting a nice, military Flieger that's maybe a little bit of a modern version, but at 39 millimeters, 36 millimeters, that I know you would do.
Yeah.
You're not, IWC really isn't running out making pilots watches in those sizes. It's not something that they do every once in a while on occasion, but usually they're pretty desirable. They sell out very quickly. Sometimes they're specialty pieces, but you know, this
Yeah,
is
they'll
this
get
is a cool
down when
watch.
they bridge that gap into almost like field looking pilot watches where they'll get
Right.
down to like the 38s. But even the small chronographs are at 41 and they're going to be chunky because that's what chronographs do. So you have to pick your poison in that regard when you're talking pilot watches.
And can I just say, obviously, we have these watches that Laco makes some watches that are more expensive, but can I just say that you have to really be a confident brand in yourself to also make an entire line of watches that already look like they're aged. Have you seen these? Like the
I
ones that are
have.
like heavily patinaed, where like the cases are already scratched and dented, and the dials look like they've been, undergoing radium like transfer for 40 years. Like you have to have a lot of confidence in your brand integrity to make a watch intentionally look like crap. And I think that that's awesome.
It's the ripped jeans of watches.
I mean, really. I mean, it's honest. I mean, like these have dents. The cases look like they're rusted. Okay. It's like this is crazy. So although those are outside of the price point, right? But you can still get some really cool Lacos for well under that $500 price point. Brand new from the store, which is pretty
Yes.
cool. So, with regards to pilot watches, I really only had one that kind of came to mind because I figured you would take all the cool specialty ones, so I left that one alone. But I have another Bulova. It's the A15. This is a Bulova watch that was originally commissioned for the military. It was used in combat, I believe, during World War II. But the A15 came back not too long ago, and people like it. It's not a watch that I see out there wildly, but the few images and things that I've seen of it kind of in the wild or on social media, it looks really cool. It's a larger watch. It's got multi crowns because basically they control different type of sliding bezels internally inside the case. You can use them to make calculations or track elapsed time. It's a very, very cool watch. So I'm happy to see it return back to the Bulova collection. People have covered it; they like it, so I think this would be a very cool pilot watch at well under $500.
Yeah, and it's got all the military aesthetics you like of those like Dirty Dozen type watches. So
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
yeah, this has been right up their alley recently between the mill ships and they've just been bringing back all the military
I
pieces,
mean, but
which
how can you not when you
well
have such an extensive catalog like that?
that's the thing. I think a lot of people
I,
don't realize that they are a pretty historic brand and they think that they're because you can buy them in a mall or you can get sort of just like what the modern fashion watch look is in a Bulova doesn't mean that they don't make good stuff or they make historic stuff.
Absolutely. And the thing is, Boulevard was an American brand.
Yep.
This is an American historic brand. And that I think is also important to note. This was a watch company that did a lot of impressive things for the military and the war effort over the years. And it's sad that it fell into hard times and it's kind of evolved into different aspects. But I think it's nice to see what they're really focusing on, which is that return to their classic overall aesthetics. That I think is good.
Yeah, and another topic that they've also kind of upped the ante in with a lot of their watches, like the Sinatra line and things like
Mm-hmm.
that, are dress watches. I do like those a lot. I don't know how I feel about the Sinatra signature on the bottom, but they have neat
Yes.
dials and they have a very good look to them. I don't know if I would necessarily pick them for a dress watch, but I give them an A for trying, right? The effort is there. I don't know if it's perfect, but I feel like people who are into that, like my crooner cousin, would probably buy that because it says Sinatra.
Yeah, 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 for sure. For sure.
But for me, dress watch, I mean, slam dunk it with an Orient Bambino all day long. Right? There's
I
like
knew it. I knew it. I
10
knew
different
it.
generations. Too easy. I mean, at the price point they come in at, way too easy.
Yep.
Uh,
I knew
another
you were gonna
one,
pick this.
another one that's just perfect would be the Timex Marlin. Ever
Yes.
since they brought that back, you have a
Yes.
ton of different colors. You have some different sizes, some special editions if you're really into the peanuts and things like that. A lot to like there. It does have those excruciatingly loud movements in them. I don't know if you ever tried one out. It's got a rotor that's like like
I have it, but I
it's
mean I guess the only Marlin that I've checked out was actually the manual one version. So I don't think I've heard
okay. Yeah, the
an
automatic
automatic
ones.
version. Yeah. That's funny though.
Yeah, it's
It's got a
it's
loud
loud.
movement, huh?
It is. It's got a loud rotor on it. But for me, as far as dress watches go, I mean, again, can't go wrong with the Bambino, but also slam dunk it on the other end with the Seiko cocktails. I mean, you're
I'm
getting,
so glad I did not pick any of these three because I was like, bro's certainly gonna pick one of them for
yeah, you
sure.
have to. I mean, you get like a lot of them have baby Grand Seiko looks to them. A lot of they
Yeah.
make ones with like Kirizuri dials or snowflake dials, and like you're getting that in a $300-400 watch, and you can get a lot of them have different, whether it be straps or bracelets, different dials. Some of them have power reserves, uh, small date wheels and stuff on them. So you can sort of pick your flavor there, and literally in some senses because they do make those cocktail like named ones that are like, for example, like the Star Bar and things like that. But
Hmm.
they
Hmm.
just have so many different cool variants of it. I mean, I remember the original, and the original was kind of the hailed value prop dress watch on all of the forums. It was like, dude, cocktail time.
Yes.
Don't even look back. Go with it. And I know they come on kind of crappy stock straps, but hey, there's tons of options out there. Get yourself a nice leather, throw it on there, and be done with it. It doesn't get much classier for a few $100.
I'm with you. I am certainly with you. So that said, I also had to go with something a little bit off the beaten path, something that I don't think have ever talked about on this podcast, or maybe we have very early on. But for me, if I'm going to go dress watch in a modern sense, I'm going Tissot Visodate. This is a watch that I've
Very
owned
nice.
personally. I still have it in my collection. It is actually one of the most accurate watches that I currently have, especially given its price point. I mean, back in the day, we were talking about a watch that, you know, retailed for around what, $650. I think the current version that's on there now has been upgraded. It's slightly larger. It's maybe not the one that I would pick, but it's slightly larger. Does have a day date movement. It is an 80-hour power reserve now. Those are around 650 or so. But the original model that's just before that, I mean, you can get these all day for $500 or so, $450 if not, and they're phenomenal. We're talking Swiss made day date movement, stainless steel, exhibition case back, very, very accurate, responsible movement, and responsive. I had it fine tuned by a watchmaker, and I mean, 1 to 2 seconds a day, consistent, always.
Wow.
It just looks good. It's 40 millimeters, so it's a little bit larger than your standard, vintage inspired dress watch. But I have had zero complaints on this watch as long as I've owned it. It is truly an awesome watch, and it looks so good on a Milanese mesh bracelet. That's the only way that I rock it. I will say that the leather strap that comes on it's pretty garbage. it's a it's an embossed calf skin to look like alligator, but overall, I think the watch is fantastic. I think it's a steal, and it's a very 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 good watch from a respectable brand, and it's Swiss. This is a good timepiece. So that would be my ultimate dress pick.
Yeah, it's definitely underrated, and especially now that they have the upgraded movements in them, hard to
Mhm.
beat it for the price point.
Yeah, and again, the new one's a little bit outside of it, but the
Of
original, like the
course,
one that
yeah.
I have, it's well within that price point, and you're getting a lot of watch for sure.
And since we were sticking with Tissot, I think they have absolutely obliterated the next topic, which would be the sport watch. When I
Oof.
was first perusing the internet, you could not beat the Seiko Sarbs, the 033, the 035. This was like the sport watch. Everybody just said, don't even look further. They come on bracelets. The dials are beautiful. The size is great. The hands are great. They're a phenomenal wear. You don't need to look any further than these. And they were 100% right. I had one. It was fantastic. Now, flash forward, Tissot has absolutely crushed it with the PRX.
Yeah.
I mean, you're getting the look of a watch that's way, way more expensive. Clay Thompson's out here rocking one.
Yeah.
As far
I love
as
I love that story. When everyone thought it was a solid gold Royal Oak and it was a
dude,
six hundred
the
dollar
funny part
piece.
is,
So
I saw that picture and I was like, that's PRX.
I know. I saw the same one and I knew exactly what it was, but of course, some
I had
hype
to, I had
beast
to,
channel
yeah, I
with
had to
some
double check it.
intern,
I had to double
didn't
check
check
it
it.
because I'm
Yeah.
like, do I really think Clay Thompson would wear a PRX? I don't know. So I had to look harder, but I was like, nope, that's a PRX.
But you also have to remember too, Tissot
I
is the
know
official
he's
timekeeper of the NBA.
yes, yes.
So a
So
lot of these guys, they have these inner workings with Tissot because they do a lot of press and a lot of type of activations with Tissot. And a lot of guys, like when they get signed on, Tissot gives them watches. Now again, are is this a watch that you know they're always getting? Yeah, okay, but is it watch that they can afford way more than that? Absolutely, they're getting these fat sign-on bonuses. But a lot of these guys, they've never had anything like that, so they wear it. And I just think that Clay Thompson thought it was a cool watch.
well, and especially if you roll around with guys who wear things like Royal Oaks, you're like, yeah, okay, this looks just like that. What do I care?
Exactly.
Not it's hard to put yourself back in the shoes of somebody who's not in the know,
Right, right.
right? I mean, I think at one point everybody's kind of like, oh, this Invicta brand has some kind of cool stuff, right? They
Yeah.
got, hey, this one's a rainbow. Like, how did they do that, right? And now you're like, oh my
Exactly.
god, I would never wear that, but it's
Yeah.
funny to be on the outside looking in as opposed to the inside looking out. It's always funny to
One
it's
hundred
always easy
percent.
to have hindsight in that regard.
100%. 100%. So that's your pick.
Yeah, I would go PRX. I know that Vare we talked about is also pretty dope. The one that kind
Yeah,
of
the
has
red dial.
that red dial. It's almost like Aquaterra Oyster Perpetual hybrid look.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
for the price, how are you going to beat that? I mean, you're never getting an Oyster Perpetual. The Aquaterra is a lot of money, and if you're somebody who is not going to appreciate or understand why it costs as much for what you're getting in that watch, something like that Vare is a perfect move for you. So
Yeah, that is certainly true. I think if I'm gonna have to go with anything that's gonna be more in that sport range, I'm gonna have to go with the Dress KX. I think we've talked a lot about Seiko. There's obvious reason for that because they are so good at what they do, and they fall well within these price points that we're talking about. Even if they retail at higher price points, you can usually find them for just a little bit under. The Dress KX is certainly one of those watches. Now we've talked about this before on the pod that it's both you and I. We don't particularly love it as a timepiece. I think I remember I said it was a little confused.
yeah,
If I remember correctly, it's been so long. But I think overall, if you're looking for an entry watch, you're looking for something that's kind of that sporty dress timepiece. Um, the dress KX I think is a very good option for an everyday watch without a price point that's going to break the bank.
Right, and you're getting a household name in the process.
Absolutely. You can put it on NATO, you can put it on bracelet, you can put it on rubber, you can put it on leather strap, and it's going to be really, really, really good. And we're talking most of these models are under $300, so I think it's certainly a good bargain for sure.
And I'm very glad you went with that pick because that's going to segue perfectly into what I have as our last topic, which would be travel slash GMT. I think
Mm-mm-mm.
I remember perfectly the Casio World Timer as being sort of the set it and forget it GMT travel watch because
Yes,
it tracks how many time
it tracks
zones.
everything.
Yeah, it's perfect. It really is for the
It tracks
price
your
point.
mom's birthday, it tracks your wife's anniversary, it tracks everything.
Another watch that I gave away at some point for I don't know, it was either a small milestone or I remember I did a like a Christmas handful of giveaways at one point just because I was just happy with the way the account was coming along and I was just trying to do something nice. But another watch that I did give away, just for some interesting flavor there. But the Casio World Timer, slam dunk travel watch, can't beat it. Super practical, super easy to use. Again, I don't know why you even go beyond that, but for me, the new SSK GMTs are awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
Let me tell you, I was really astounded. I didn't know what I was going to think about them at first. But in looking at them and they give you a blue one, the blue one isn't necessarily my favorite. It's got sort of that I guess it's kind of like a Batman motif around the bezel and everything, but I don't know how I feel about it. The orange is very out there. It's very Seiko. It's very cool. It gives you a little bit of that gilt colorway.
Yeah. Old school Seiko.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna take the time here to pull a little dun, 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 dun. That's the black one I have here in my hands.
You
Um,
got one?
dude, this thing is sick, man. I don't know. I've I was like, you know what? The the JDM sites had them. They're all pretty decently priced. Sakura had them for like 300 something dollars,
Okay.
which is like way below what you'd pay here.
Yeah,
And then
yeah,
even
yeah.
even Nomon, I think Nomon has them for like 430 or something. So like you can get these pretty reasonable, and these are the Japanese domestic models. These are the SBSC or whatever, not the SSK models. So they like to keep the good stuff for themselves. That's just how they
Yeah, for
roll.
sure, for sure.
But let me tell you, this remedies all of the issues I had with the more diver version of this watch. I think the Cyclops and the extra hand really remedy a lot of that empty space that I had problems with.
Yep.
The bezel's a little more busy. You get the 24-hour time scale. And it's a really interesting bezel. I think, if I'm correct, I think it's an aluminum bezel, but they kind of went over it with some sapphire, I want to say, or acrylic of some kind. So it's got a
Because
reflect.
it has a reflectivity to it.
Yes, it's got a
Yeah.
reflectivity over it. It's definitely got a clear coat over it. And then the divider for 12-hour time, it's weird because head on it's also black. And then when you kind of tilt it, it's got sort of a silver look to it,
Yeah.
but it's very fleeting. It doesn't stay. It's you see it, you can acknowledge that it's there. It's really hard to photograph, but then when you look at it again, it's all black. Let me tell you, this thing it really does have
Is this is
like
this your is this your spirit animal?
this
Your
is this is like the like ideal what people would refer to as a shitter. Like this is like a perfect shitter, and I've got it. So you got black bezel, black dial, red GMT hand. I've got it in the last of the NATOs that Bontemps made for me. So it's got my logo with the red square and the
So
white
this
B.
is
So this I've got this matched to a T. Like this is like fit God level status.
so this is the Bro KX.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, it fits the bill perfectly. It's got the color
All
scheme
right.
down to
So all you cheeseheads out
A
there,
T.
if you're looking for the Brodinky special, there's your Bro KX right there.
You know, and because it's a GMT watch,
Black
I mean,
Seiko GMT.
it has a bidirectional friction bezel, and
How's the
it's
action?
got. I mean, it's good. It goes both directions, and it's not. It's pretty stiff. It doesn't move too easily on you where you find it. I always hated that about the compass bezel Seikos, like the Sarba 017, because the second crown was so sensitive that the little red triangle that indicated north was always off 12, and I was like, God damn it. Like, especially when
Yeah.
you take a really good picture and you're like, oh, that
Oh,
looks like
I
crap.
forgot to check the crown. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but it doesn't, it's got enough resistance so that it doesn't wiggle, but you can move it very easily. And I don't mind it not having a screw down crown because it's not a dive watch. So
Exactly.
it just remedies a lot of the, I don't know, little issues that I kind of had
Yeah.
with the more early on Seiko 5
Yeah. The
releases.
Seiko 5 air quotes diver.
Yeah. I mean,
Street or I
you
should
still
say
get that.
the Seiko 5 street diver.
Yeah, you still get that kind of weird Seiko. I don't know if it's a 5 or a Kirby S, but
Yeah.
it is what it is. That's going to be on there. There's no way to take it off. So,
The Superman shield.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. But let me tell you, for a few $100, like this really satisfies a lot of like that black GMT Master itch for like a fun watch. You know what I mean? Obviously
And again,
it's
it's
not a GMT Master. I'm fully aware, but for the
for
price point,
sure.
and what you're getting and a really, in my opinion, great aesthetic. I mean, you got red text on there too. Like it's got a little bit of everything. It's got a lot of very popular tropes about it that are cool. I'm really enjoying it so far. So
No, man, I'm happy for you. Congratulations. That's certainly a cool watch. And I knew it was only a matter of time before you actually picked that up yourself. I've been
Matt,
seeing
whose fault it is? It's Matt from Spirit of Time's fault. When I was on with him, he got it the day it dropped. He got the orange one, and I
you
was
got
like,
the orange one. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
"You mother!" Like I would say my only gripe about the watch is the end link. First of all, still not doing solid end links. Which, come on, it's 2022. Give me a solid end link. But hollow end link and the end link itself is like a faux Jubilee. Like it has what looks like middle links, but they're just part
Oh,
of
yeah,
the
yeah.
link. It's
Yeah.
not individual links. Like
Yeah, yeah,
it's just
yeah.
the start of the bracelet where the
Yeah.
actual five
So it
links.
doesn't it extends out before it drops down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's got protrusions where the inner links should be, but they're not inner links. They're just like a molding of it,
Yeah.
which is a little bit corny. But again, it's got the usual sort of Seiko measurements, so you can throw any 22 millimeter rubber or NATO or whatever you have on it, and
Yeah.
it'll look
And
fire. So
are they fat bars?
these are, they're not the super fat bars that come on things like the um
SKX.
Monster and things like that.
Yeah.
They're thicker than your typical spring bar, but I wouldn't call them fat boys.
Okay.
But
So
you can.
so they're not the 2 millimeter.
No, but you know what? I mean, if you're gonna get a like a rubber or something from Uncle Seiko, you might as well get some spring bars too. He's got
Yeah.
every different size you can imagine.
Yeah,
Shout out to
get
Uncle
you
Seiko.
get you some slim fats.
Yeah,
You
and a
know?
nice waffle strap or something.
There you go. There you go. I love it, man. Congratulations. That's a very cool watch.
Yeah, so that would be my slam dunk pick for a GMT travel watch. Also, honorable mention, a watch that I spent a little time with was the Orient Polaris. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
I don't think that I have. Let me look
It's
this
an
up real quick.
Orient GMT. It's like it was like $400 when I
Orient Polaris.
Orient Polaris, and it comes in a few different colors. The one I toyed around with was white dial, blue accents, blue hands.
Oh, I have seen
Yeah,
this watch. I've
but
seen
it's got
this
cool.
watch.
It's got cool dial texturing. It's pretty neat. Cool
And is
little
it
watch.
It's obviously mechanical. It's got power reserve on it.
Yeah, it's a mechanical watch.
Very cool.
Yeah, not too bad. Very classy for the price.
Yeah, 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 for sure, for sure.
41 mils, not terrible.
So I knew that you were gonna take the Seiko GMT. I mean, how could you not? Because I mean that is kind of the big one. So I went a little bit sideways knowing that you were going to zig, I was going to zag. So instead of doing mechanical GMTs, I went with two quartz GMTs.
Okay.
So I think for many years, if you're looking for somewhat of a GMT ish timepiece, certainly the Timex Q with its 12-hour bezel can be used like a GMT. I think that makes a lot of sense for a lot of people. It's $179, and now they just upgraded it, as we've talked about before on the podcast, with a true GMT caliber, so you can actually get a real GMT in the queue, which I think is fantastic. So there's that, and then another watch that I have owned personally. Um, I have a Boulder Venture. Specifically, I had the worn and wound version, but there is another variation that is a quartz GMT in titanium. These are 38 millimeter watches, if I'm not mistaken. Boulder has been certainly talked about by a lot of different micro brands and reviewers over the years. They do stuff at wind up and all different types of stuff like that. But the Venture is a great watch in the mechanical version. Certainly the GMT version is very cool, but again, just know it is a quartz movement. But you are getting a nice looking fieldish GMT-ish timepiece for 300-400 bucks. So, and it's titanium. So there you go.
Yeah, and sort of another honorable mention that it falls a little bit outside the price range. But the Glycine Airman,
Oh yeah.
I had one of these. It's a super cool watch. First of all, really, really light and comes in a variety of sizes. I had a 36 millimeter and it was pretty damn dope. Like I almost wish I hadn't sold it, but check this out, right? So one day I'm out to dinner and I'm wearing this thing and I just take it off and I happen to just go look. I knew it was a limited edition. I go look at the case back. Number one,
Your limited edition number was one.
one of 1,000. I probably still have a
What?
picture of it. It was 001.
That is so cool.
It
And
was really cool.
that's really odd because most brands, when they
Usually
make,
that's like an honor to have number one, right?
it's not even that. Most brands actually keep number one.
Yeah.
Like if they produce like I've heard from people that I know that Omega, when they produce like a limited edition, they'll keep like number one, number two, right? So they always
Yeah.
have something to show that they made this watch. You know what I mean?
That's why I thought it was crazy. I was like, "Oh my god,
Yeah,
I
so
gotta dig up the picture. I gotta see if I can
that's
find it." But
that's so crazy. That's so odd, but so cool, so very cool.
yeah, and so I wound up moving it on to check this out. A dude who was actually in the military, who had almost like I don't want to call it a shrine, but sort of just something honoring his guys that he served with, and some who are no longer with us. And
Yeah,
he's like, yeah, he's like, he's like, I want to put. He's like, he's like, I love that it's number one. He's like, I want to put it in this, this tribute and have it there with like a bunch of other like memorabilia and stuff that they have had. And I was like, that's
okay,
actually pretty. I was like, that's actually pretty cool. So you can have it.
I like that.
So
I
yeah,
like that.
so
Respect,
I
respect.
wound up moving it on. Like I said, I kind of wish I
Hey, at
didn't,
least you
but
moved it on for a good reason. You
yeah.
know, it's like it's that's a good reason.
So very, very cool on that front.
But that's it, man. Anything else that you got that you want to mention or talk about before we wrap up today's episode?
Not really, just I guess, don't sleep on the starter watch. I think even no matter how far along you are in your journey and what you're doing, I don't see why you can't have a little fun in the shallow end of the pool. And if, you're somebody starting out, find what you like that way. Don't jump too early. Don't go up the ladder too fast. Enjoy it at the shallow end. That's honestly that's when it's the most fun. Watch
Yeah, it
collecting is the
is.
most fun when you're trying things out and the price tags aren't too serious and you can just
Well,
wear things that you buy, and you know what, enjoy them for a while. Don't try to graduate too fast. Enjoy what you buy first. That's like my piece of advice that I would give my former self, is enjoy the first pieces and really
yeah.
wear them around and find out what you like about them, what you don't like about them, and try to narrow it down and find the perfect piece for you in that range and then move up. It's you have your whole life to do that. Don't rush into it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I certainly echo those sentiments, but on the flip side of that, I also encourage seasoned collectors, go back out and go buy something that's not too expensive. You know, go back out and feel what it's like to own something that is just good for what it is at that price. It's not trying to be anything it's not. It's not trying to be anything it isn't. It's just it is that thing at that price. And sometimes it's such a fun exercise just to go back and relive what it's like to be the one watch guy at the $300 price point. You know, it's always about perspective. And I think as we continue to grow in this hobby and we spend so much more money, sometimes, 4 or 5 times the price of some of these watches that we talked today on one watch, it's a good exercise to kind of remember and keep yourself grounded of what it's like to wear an SKX, of what it's like to wear, some of these timepieces, because, life's too short. We should never take things too seriously. And I think this is certainly a great exercise in which to do that. So I recommend it. Go out there, have some fun, buy some watches. And for those of you who are listening to this for the first time, getting into the hobby, welcome to Watch Fam. And hopefully this was a look at different things that maybe you hadn't come across your radar yet or your feed yet. So if that's the case, go out and go check these brands out. Give them a whirl, give them a shot, and find out what you truly love, and you'll like collecting it a lot more.
Yep, and be prepared to see plenty of this GMT watch I just picked up. So
the Bro KX is coming to your feed. Here we go, baby.
Yeah,
I love it. I love it. All right, guys. Thanks again for tuning in to episode 41 of the Wrist Cheese Radio Podcast, your place for horological hot takes, taboo topics, and often unpopular opinions. We'll catch you on the next one.
Signing off.